So, like I was saying, biodiversity increases the ecosystem's resilience. Do we know what resilience is? Ecosystems. Resilience. What is resilience? It's the ability to recover. Ability to recover from something. In this case, it's from disturbance. Right? If you're talking about resilience in you, right? Whenever something bad has happened, resilience is the ability for you to recover and come back, right? And bounce back, come back from that horrible or bad experience or situation that you have had happen to you. And of course, not only do we want ecosystems to maintain their biodiversity, having an increase in biodiversity, but because they do provide us with a bunch of services that we benefit from, as humans do. All organisms, right, benefit from having each other, but we do as well. So biodiversity in ecosystems provide humans with what they call ecosystem services. So what do those include? They include food production, nutrient cycling, okay, so food production, of course, because and we're not referring necessarily to any kind of orchards for fruit. We're talking about how, right, like in the ocean, maybe you'll have like kelp forests and stuff like that provide shelter for fish and other seafood animals that we may be eating. Nutrient cycling is talking about when we talked about the different cycles like nitrogen, carbon, stuff like that. There's different nutrients found in the soil. Soil structure. Because again, we know there's different things in the soil that can help our plants grow and things like that. There's different microorganisms and decomposers that live in the soil, purifying water. There are different organisms that will help keep the soil together, and the soil and the rocks help purify that water. Storing carbon, pollinating crops, regulating pests, right? So we have some animals eating others that might be eating your chicken eggs or your plants. And lastly, buffering effects of extreme weather events. So again, right, we may have hills or mountains that have trees and all that, all diverse kinds of plants, and that helps the people who live by them to prevent some kind of erosion or mudslide happening. And lastly, in order to make sure that we do have this higher increase of biodiversity in these ecosystems, we have to preserve them, right? We have to be doing something to make sure that if there is some kind of disturbance, natural disaster, something that happens, we are preserving these biodiversity ecosystems, these ecosystems. Because if not, we know from before that if we remove some kind of organism, we take something out, it takes the balance off and it can cause issues. All right, and this is the last little section, preserving biodiversity. So there are different things. There are 5 different things that scientists, activists, biologists do in order to preserve this biodiversity. So the first one is protecting individual species. And this one's pretty simple, pretty common, right? You've probably heard about it before. So examples include the California condor or the bald eagle. These are all animals that, specifically birds, that have been trying to take care of and conserve. 2, preserving ecosystems. Preserving ecosystems. So here we have example of a marine sanctuary, right? So they're making sure these are like ecosystems specifically that they're trying to maintain safe. So sanctuaries. So for example, in California, we have 2. So again, we have 2 in California. We have the Channel Islands and Monterey Bay, which are on the coast where they're trying to just make sure they're taking care of all the marine organisms and animals found in that location. Our third one is preventing habitat loss and fragmentation. So fragmentation, just what that sounds like, right? Fragmenting, breaking up. So for example, looking for ways not to build a freeway or something that cuts across a habitat. And I don't know if you've seen, and I believe it's in California, I have to double check, but there was, I think it's in LA County, I would have to double check, but there is a spot where they actually did build a freeway, but what they did is they worked on creating this kind of bridge that would connect one habitat to another, right? I think it's like cliffs or mountainsides nearby or something. And so what they did is they created this kind of bridge or road per se that would help the animals go from one side to the other. And just 2 more. Number 4, habitat restoration. And there are people who just focus on this, whether it's nonprofits, that's their job, right? For the state, whatever it is. There are people who just focus on biodiversity conservation. Habitat restoration, so they're either removing or adding something to improve the ecosystem. Maybe there was some kind of natural disturbance. Maybe it's not, the soil isn't the best anymore because of all this erosion and things that have happened. Ecosystem. And lastly, identifying biodiversity hotspots. So here, biologists are looking, or conservationists are looking to find areas, these hotspots are areas with many species found nowhere else, and the habitat has to be in immediate danger of destruction. So, for example, we have one here in California. It's mostly California, and then it runs, well, I should say in California. On California, it runs up to Oregon and south into Mexico, and that is called the California Floristic Province. And you may be like, well, what is that? It has more than 2,000 plant species. And it also homes or houses endangered animals. And because of this, and because of the weather that we have, they see it more like a Mediterranean kind of climate. And it's the only area in the U.S. They really work on trying to conserve it. However, only about close to 25% of this area is still like its original condition. Why? Because we know we're building. There's other things like pollution, temperature change, things like that are messing with this regions, which is causing it to change. But that is it. So keep all these in mind. And then we're actually going to be talking more specifically about how we humans, what we're doing to affect our planet. Have a great day.